just jump started by asking how you're doing, but I want the extended version of that answer, not the everyday answer.
I've been feeling very rushed. I've been feeling a lot of pressure. We just came off of winning a state championship at my high school. This is my second year coaching. And I think coaching is a calling. It was very difficult when I jumped into the game of coaching, and just to experience a state championship a little over a month ago was exciting. But now I feel like as I took a month and a couple weeks to reset, I feel kind of like the pressure to get back into it and to rebuild and get things ready for next season. So, a lot of things were on my mind in terms of, who to add to our team, what to do to kind of help the players improve. So I just came off of a trip. I was in Tennessee for a week in the country, and things move a lot slower out there. And I was forced to be still and just take things day by day. And today was my first Monday back to work, and this is probably the first Monday where I kind of came into my week very just relaxed and ready to take on whatever I have to handle for the day. So coaching in that environment was exciting. I've never played a high school game in that environment, but coaching is coaching is difficult. I mean, you're not in control. You have to make sure that you prepare your team for a game like that. So even though I was very nervous, I couldn't show it. I had to have my game face on too. So when we won, very, very special moment to witness that. And then we had to prepare for a state championship up in Sacramento to play Bishop O'Dowd at the Golden One Center in Sacramento. So the whole experience from being escorted to the gym, I have our own personal locker rooms, and playing on an NBA court was really exciting. And so definitely one of my greatest memories in coaching so far. I put a lot of pressure on myself. I think that this kind of stems from being the oldest sister, being the role model to a sense, always making it seem like I have it all together. I kind of been that way growing up. I've always, I would be upset about getting a bad grade or getting in trouble, and the pressure of being perfect. It was a lot on me. And so when I'm in, this coaching career of mine, you can't help but compare yourself to other teams, other programs, other coaches, and, that can be very toxic. And so I feel like when it comes to pressure, what I started to do this year is kind of go back to who I was in college, right? I loved to compete. I loved when we needed a bucket and I was the go-to person. I loved, playing against the best teams, playing against the best coaches. I was fortunate enough to play against Pat Summitt my first year as a freshman, played against Tara Vanderveer. There's some top quality players that I played against, but I loved it. And I was just ready to compete. And so I think how I thought about pressure this year was pressure is a privilege, right? You're in this moment to show how good you are to these kids. And I'm not just saying about basketball. And so kind of shifting my mindset to where this is the same game that I'm playing. I'm just in a different role. RHEINA, the young athlete, was very competitive. RHEINA worked her butt off in anything that she did. She loved to prove people wrong. I remember my first time playing basketball. I was 7 years old. My dad was, again, a volunteer, just needed a coach. Never played in my life. I was awful, terrible. and playing against other girls that were so much better than me. Like naturally, sometimes some kids right now, if they're not good at 7 years old, they're like, I don't want to play, I quit. But when I was 7, I was like, oh, I want to get better and I want to be the best player next year and next year and next year. So I was very feisty. I was very determined. I worked so hard. I would dribble to school with my left hand because my dad said I couldn't dribble with my left hand. So that's all I did. And I loved playing pickup with the boys outside of the park. I just loved basketball so much. And I was just, I would cry when my dad would ground me with basketball. So I loved the game so much. And that really helped me. That competitive energy is something that you cannot teach these days. I just came with it. And I'm grateful for that because what I lacked in like athleticism, like I couldn't really jump. I wasn't the fastest, like wasn't the quickest guard, but my work ethic really set me apart from other kids that were in my grade. And it's what got me a scholarship. So I was the best player on my team and in the South Bay area, but I actually wasn't getting a lot of offers at all. I was too short to play one position. I was too slow to play a position. I just wasn't quick enough. There was always something because I was in that combo guard type of build. And, sometimes coaches were looking for a true point guard. Some coaches were looking for a true shooter, and I was too short. So, it was really hard for me because I've just kind of comparing myself again to other athletes that are in my grade, getting offers to Division I schools, and, I'm not getting anything. So it was really hard for me to accept the fact that high school might be it for me. High school basketball might be it. So I just persevered and continued to play every game like it's my last. And USF, University of San Francisco, it was a 6 a.m. practice. They came to my practice to watch me practice. And after that practice, they wanted to bring me up to an official visit to visit San Francisco. And on my official visit, the head coach offered me my first Division I scholarship. And I accepted it. I was just so happy and thankful and grateful for that opportunity. And I knew I wanted to play Division I, but then again, that 7-year-old RHEINA of like proving people wrong came about because I was the last freshman to get a scholarship. I know that I wasn't projected to play a lot at all. And I know there was some critics of like, I'm not good enough to play Division I. One of the coaches that I remember vividly going through my high school experience literally told me that I am not good enough to play Division I. And that stuck with me. I'm 34, and I still remember being told that at 16 years old. But when I got the opportunity to play, I signed before my senior year so I could just have a great season. And then instantly when I played at USF, it was like, all right, got to start all over again to build my way up to play for this program. So when I stopped playing basketball, I struggled a lot. And this is where I go back to like the pressure of being perfect. And I really realized that I identified so much with being the basketball player that when basketball was taken away from me, or it no longer was a part of my life, I struggled with figuring out who was RHEINA without basketball. And so, my goal was to play overseas. I wanted to play in the WNBA at one point. And an opportunity came about, but it wasn't the right one. And so I really had to figure out what's next. And I think at that time, I was going from job to job and industry to industry because I'm just like, all right, something has to fulfill this purpose of mine. Like, I couldn't find anything that filled me up like the game of basketball did. I had to take initiative and ownership of my life. And I wasn't used to that because the past 4 years at USF, my life was planned for me. I had somebody to go to for anything, food, workouts, a trainer. I was hurt. I can go to somebody for that. So when I stopped playing, I didn't have that anymore. I didn't have somebody I could go to help me with different things. I kind of had to figure things out on my own. And so I think that was a really big part of that struggle. Why I struggled so much is because I always had somebody for me, doing things for me, laying out my like day to day. And now I had to take initiative and ownership of my life. But this time without the sport that I've been playing since I was 7 years old. I really identified with RHEINA, the basketball player. So I now had to figure out who's RHEINA without basketball. And change is hard for me sometimes. Kind of going through this, I didn't have an older sister or brother to kind of look up to and see like what they did, how I can do better. And so I kind of just had to go in and submit job applications left and right and try to like make money and get by my day, even though there was a missing piece that I ultimately still wanted to play. So that was a really big moment for me that just ultimately was a struggle. Really having something that I love so much, it didn't happen. It didn't happen at that moment. I could have probably waited for another opportunity to go overseas. But, I believe that I needed to make some money. I needed to make some income in some way. I needed to figure out how to step away from that sport. And so I think that was my biggest struggle is adapting to my new normal after 20 years of playing basketball. An opportunity came about in 2021, just fell in my lap. High school's looking for a head coach. A friend of mine has been trying to get me to coach, but I was like, no, I can't. I love the game. I would want to play. I can't do it. Best decision of my life. I wasn't getting paid crazy at all. It was nothing, but I came in, I remember my first day at St. Bernard High School, walked into the gym, an empty gym, and I felt what was missing. And it was basketball. And so, I was just able to I felt like a kid again. I felt like I could just go out there and teach the game I love to my high school girls. Now, what I wasn't prepared for was connecting with my high school girls the way that I did. And I didn't realize that through this game, I can touch so many lives. And that first season, some of the girls played basketball for us, some of them didn't. So, either way, it was my opportunity to make basketball fun for them and to teach them how to play, but also life lessons while I'm coaching. I like high school coaching. I feel like this is my purpose because we have to protect this generation. We really need to, because these are going to be our future leaders, right? And so I feel like there's a lot more resources in college and also professionally to take care of their athletes. But we really have to start grooming them and preparing them in high school. And so I feel like that's where the disconnect can be. Youth sports, unfortunately, it's just going into being more of a money-hungry, just fame. People aren't playing basketball for the right reasons anymore. And so my goal is to protect that generation and protect that joy of basketball for these girls. And so coaching in high school, I believe the high school area, youth, I'll help out with kids, camps, and clinics because it's all about these kids. I feel like that's my purpose. It's just to be there for them because of the lack of resources that might not be available for certain high schools. We really need to protect our kids. Unfortunately, with youth sports, it's very much a transaction. It's who's going to be the latest, the top ranked kid, or who's going to get this NIL deal, especially as money is involved, who's going to make it to these particular programs, like what can you do for my kid, or what can I do for you? And so I think that we're kind of shifting away from the real joy of the game and the purpose of the game. And so I tend to stay true to who I am. I love basketball, and I've always loved this game since I was 7 years old. And I want my team to continue to love the game regardless of whatever goes around them, because that passion is something that you cannot take away. Some of the girls in high school, that's probably the last time they're going to play basketball. Some of them might play in college. But, my goal as a coach is to be transformative. I'm not trying to be transactional. Like I said, I did my time. I just want to change lives. We didn't have social media. If you were good, you were talked about. Word of mouth was it. Then you might get a newspaper write-up. People might see your game and, by talking to somebody else at the grocery store, and they'll come and watch you play. So if you're good, you were talked about. Now, for this generation, social media is brand building. It's great. There's so many positive to social media, but the one negative point that I feel affects my team and this generation in particular is this comparison, the comparison from them where they are currently to where they need to be, or where they want to be. And I can only imagine how it is for a kid, because adults do it all the time. I see things online, I'm like, dang, how come I'm not there at my age or, in my career? And so that's the first step, is just to be aware of these differences. And, I see it. One of the things that I preach on is just like how we can turn a situation and find either the positive in it or find the lesson, because either way you're growing, right? So, I'm very close to my team. I give them the opportunity to come and talk to me about anything. And, when they talk to me about things that are affecting them mentally, of not being recruited, or not they're handling things at home well, or even at school, it's like, if these kids aren't opening up to me, what are they going to do? What's going to be their outlet if I can't help them through basketball? The best thing you can do is listen to them, but also give advice, talk to them about things, and creating a safe space for them to open up to you. Coaches, I believe, that if you're doing it right, you're changing lives. Some of these kids might not have family members that they can vent to, older siblings. They might talk about their problems to somebody that might not be the best fit for them. If you're in a position to coach, you're teaching them the game in terms of like the sport, but you also can have the opportunity to teach them the game of life. And so I think that is a blessing for coaches to really understand, like, you're in a position to help these kids get them to the level that they need to be at in life. And so if you have these conversations with them early, you can only do so much, but at least having the conversation at an early age will at least get them thinking about the life other than sports. I also feel like being vulnerable is important too. Like I said it before, I don't think vulnerability is a sign of weakness. When you can relate to these kids, or at least like share some vulnerable moments with these kids, I believe that they'll be able to accept this information and do something with it. Because if you are going to portray as if your life is perfect and you just did everything right and you didn't make any mistakes just to prove that you are the adult and you should know everything, naturally in their mind, it's like, well, I know, like, I'm not going to be that perfect. So what's the point? Why do I even try to play basketball if I'm not even going to make it to be in the WNBA, or I'm not going to play overseas? Like, why try? That's why a lot of kids are quitting youth sports, is because they either not winning, it's not fun anymore, they're not getting what they want, right? And so having these conversations with these kids as young as high school, if they're in a competitive space, it's super important. Playing time, for example, they're not getting what they want, so you're going to come and defend them to get them more playing time when they're not proving themselves they don't deserve that. So in my mind, I'm like, here's X, Y, and Z, why they're not playing. The girls are aware of that because I've been very transparent. But in my mind, I'm like, you're teaching them to run to you for every problem that they have, for them to go to their parents if they don't like something, rather than teaching them like, hey, you got to get better. You got to work harder. You're not performing in practice. Why would she play you? Having those conversations. Instead, I have to be the one to have those conversations. And they might not like it, then they don't like me, but they love their parents or this and that, when they know that like after high school, like in your job or whatever that may be, like you have to prove yourself. You're going to go through things that are just not, that's not what you want, but you need to do it in order for you to get better and grow. And so, and that's a struggle part too, is just understanding and dealing with some of these parents. It's like, you're really, really protecting them from the world, and you're doing them a disservice because they're going to have to go through life and just struggle off of one inconvenience. And that's not how it is in life. Every single time I'm there to just hoop. Very rarely got into some personal conversations with my coaches, not discrediting who they were as coaches, but more so it was uncomfortable for me because I just thought that they were just mean coaches. Like, I don't want to tell you my business. I don't want any of that stuff, like, because you might tell my parents. Like, it was just more of that. And so what I tell myself is that I needed that though. I needed to feel comfortable, or someone to tell me, hey, you can open up to me if everything's okay. Because I felt the pressure of being perfect and like having it all together and, being the best player on the court all the time, like always having my stuff together. I didn't really have an outlet. I was afraid to disappoint my parents in any way. So where I am now, I want to be the coach that I needed when I was younger. I feel like I can give myself a little bit more credit than I do. And I feel like for me, I like to help people. I'm a giver. When my family or my friends come to me with a problem or an issue, I could be dealing with something as well, but I ultimately want to help others before I help myself. I'm I'm a big believer on that. I feel like I'm here to help others, right? And, I don't give myself grace as I should. I think that I'm a little too hard on myself sometimes. Even when we get a compliment about our state championship or a win or whatever it is, I tend to deflect sometimes. And I'm not sure why that's happening, but sometimes I have a really hard time giving myself credit for doing the things that I do. I don't know. I think sometimes it's like I don't want to feel like as if I'm doing too much a little bit and coming off a little bit too cocky, arrogant, whatever that may be. But I realize that like I'm not practicing what I preach. Like I'm always like my player's like biggest fan. If they look so pretty, I will tell them, "Oh my gosh, you look gorgeous. Did you do something different with your hair?" And like when I see them deflecting or like just getting shy, I'm like, you have to own it. You have to own how beautiful you look, or if they make a right play, they've improved so far. Like I also think that's important too in coaching. Like you also have to just not only like teach them like about their mistakes, you have to acknowledge their growth as well. And sometimes people need to hear that, not just through text or whatever it may be. So do need to do a better job at accepting that for myself. But I think it's just more so me just being that person for other people, and wanting to help and make them feel better about things that they do. How strong I really am. We see the state championship, we see the Delray League, champions, we see the Daily Reads Coach of the Year. The social media is just like, is your highlight reel, right? A lot of people don't understand what coaches go through mentally and emotionally after a game, before a game. There's a lot of times where I'm smiling in people's faces that have completely put me down. But I have to hold myself in a certain light to just, because this is what coaching is about. People that's just coaching. This is the unfortunate side of it. You signed up for this. While I don't feel like that is right, I'm really proud of how strong I am to continue going about my day, to continue staying firm in my purpose and ignoring things that would affect me before I was coaching. I'm looking forward to seeing my players graduate from high school. I'm looking forward to seeing them sign to go play basketball in college. I'm looking forward to being a fan of theirs while they're playing. I'm looking forward to seeing like how successful these girls will be. They're very talented kids, and I'm not just saying on the basketball court. I have a team. I have multiple players on my team that are very, very talented in things that have nothing to do with basketball, and I'm looking forward to being in those moments when, whatever that may be. I'm just looking forward to seeing them grow up and having to play a role in their growth. I would hope that's how I affected them, and ultimately just make an impact. I feel reminded that I'm doing something right. Just kind of talking about how I coach and why I coach, and it just makes me feel like I am doing my job. I have to give myself grace for being this way. I feel less pressure because I'm able to talk about the things that, that I've gone through and that I've persevered through. And that's more rewarding than a state championship because, like I said this multiple times, but I am impacting lives, and like I'm really here for a reason. I don't have another motive into why I'm coaching. It really is to help others. And so I feel it's just more of a reminder of like, you are doing things right. I feel like this is my authentic path. It might take a long time, but I feel like an authentic path is just a lot more memorable than anything else. I don't want to be a different coach. I don't want to be someone that I'm not. I might not do things the traditional way that most coaches do or whatever that may look like, but, I feel like I'm doing a great job. And I think that talking about it and just being honest and transparent about these conversations really makes me feel like good.
Thank you for sharing with us.
Whew, that was great.